In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful. As for those who say, our Lord is Allah, and then remain steadfast, the angels descend on them, reassuring them, fear not nor grieve, and rejoice with the glad tidings of the garden which you were promised. We are your friends in this life and in the hereafter. Therein will you have all that your souls will desire, and therein will you have all that you ask for, an entertainment from the most forgiving, merciful God. And who is better in speech than he who invites men to Allah, and does righteous deeds, and says, I am surely of those who submit. And good and evil are not alike. Repel evil with that which is best. And lo, he between whom and thyself was enmity will become as though he were a warm friend. But none is granted it save those who are steadfast, and none is granted it save those who possess a large share of good. And if an incitement from Satan incite thee, then seek refuge in Allah. Surely he is the all-hearing, the all-knowing.
Jazakumullah. Now I invite the guests, if they want to ask any questions, they're most welcome, please. The arrangements have already been made, and I hope they will also be explained. We're going to organize this. Roman, are you going to organize this? Of course, do please go ahead. Okay.
Your Holiness, my name is Madeleine Corper and I come from London. Please can you tell me what your view of Jesus Christ is?
Okay, I will. My view of Jesus Christ is that shared by all the Muslims of the world regarding his truth, regarding his being a chosen servant of Allah, regarding his being a prophet of Allah in whom all Muslims must believe. This is the belief handed down to us by the Holy Quran. And this is again a distinctive feature of the Quran, and I repeat, it is a distinctive feature because in no other religion you will find belief in all other prophets of God. Otherwise, their belief in the Holy Prophet of Islam will not be acceptable either. Unless they believe in all the prophets of Allah, wherever they were born, in whichever age they were born, the belief in Muhammad Rasulullah would be of no avail. They would not be counted among the Muslims. So Jesus is looked upon, according to the viewpoint that the Quran has presented us, Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, as a human being born miraculously without the agency of man, but miraculously created, not born as a son of God. He was called son of God only by way of endearment. Like the children of Israel are also referred to as children of God. So this is the whole truth about Jesus in which we believe from the Quranic point of view. Thank you. Yes, please.
Your Holiness.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Martin Offenberger.
Yes.
I'm a physician, and I'm from the United States of America.
That's right. And we happen to meet there.
Yes.
I'm so lucky to have met you there.
Thank you. It was my honor
Los
and my
Angeles.
pleasure.
Yes,
really.
yes.
It would appear, if only from present trends, inshallah, that it's only a matter of time before Ahmadis become the majority in certain countries of the world.
Inshallah.
And that at such times, Ahmadis, either individually or as a group, will be in a position to take political power. Assuming that they are individuals of good heart and sincere,
That's right.
and they come to you for advice. Would you advise them that they should replace their present conventional system of justice with a system based upon the Quran, and specifically, should they enforce that by such things as punitive amputations, whipping of all fornicators 80 times, and morality police?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You see, my advice to the future Ahmadis would be the same as my advice is to the entire world today. Wherever I visit, in whichever country I go, I most often meet important people, political leaders of different countries, and I always draw their attention to the fact that the world peace cannot be built without building the platform of absolute justice. As long as we do not build the platform of absolute justice, the belief in peace, world peace, is just an airy fairy tale. It has no foundation whatsoever. And that is what is so hard to follow. To do lip service to justice is all right. It's done enough by the United Nations and other world leaders. But they always speak of peace without laying emphasis on justice itself. If they speak of justice, it's just casually, in passing, they say justice must prevail, but they do not commit themselves to absolute justice. So when you look at the behavior of big nations in relation to the international forum they want to create through United Nations or through other bilateral relationships, seldom would you find, perhaps I doubt if you find at all, any nation in the world which is committed to justice to a degree that even if it has to estrange friends for the sake of loyalty to justice, they would not abandon their dedication to justice. That is the major problem. And if Ahmadiyya cannot create a generation in the future which also has some political power and still can adhere tenaciously to the concept of absolute justice, then Ahmadiyya would have failed the world. We have no interest whatsoever in any political power without this fundamental principle of Islam which speaks of absolute justice. The emphasis in the Quran is so great that it repeatedly reminds Muslims from different angles. For instance, the Holy Quran reminds the Muslims that even if you have to bear witness against your dearest ones, against your parents, against whatever you hold dear, do it in the name of justice. Give preference to justice over all other considerations. Then the Holy Quran tells us when you come to power, exactly the question you have raised. When you come to power, dispense absolute justice and even the enmity of a people who have been indulged in religious hostilities against you. Even the enmity of such a people should not deviate you from the set course of absolute justice. Dispense justice, or you will lose the favor of Allah. So this is my message to the people today, and this is my message to the people of tomorrow. Tomorrow, as you express your hope, I also share that hope very strongly, that inshallah within next few decades you will find many countries fall into the lap of Ahmadiyya, and there this real test will begin. If I see such a day, then I'll only be happy if I see new countries evolve with a new concept of politics, where the friendship will not be through bilateral contracts, it will be through service to justice, and that would be the commonality between nations who would become as friends. Thank you.
Your Holiness, my name is Allison Knight. I'm a teacher from Canada. And I'd like to ask you the following question.
Please.
In Christianity, there is a great emphasis on forgiveness of sin through Jesus Christ.
Right.
And I wondered, how does Islam approach sin, and what, in your opinion, is the most important part of that?
Right. You see, forgiveness is good, but Islam lays a condition to your forgiveness of a sinful person who commits errors. The Holy Quran lays the condition that if forgiveness promotes reformation, then you are permitted to forgive, it is welcome. But if, on the contrary, forgiveness promotes crime, then forgiveness is no virtue at all. It is not permitted for man to forgive where, through ordinary expectations. Of course, man doesn't know what the future is, but one can judge whether forgiveness will promote reformation or crime. So in the latter case, he is not permitted to forgive. As far as forgiveness through sacrifice is concerned, somebody else's, we don't believe in it because in principle we reject this philosophy. If you want me to further enlarge upon this subject and elaborate it, I will do that. But if you think the answer already have given is sufficient, then I'll stop here. Pam? Yes.
This is the emphasis in Christianity, to forgive through Christ. It is so different in Islam. I would appreciate an explanation.
Okay, I will do that. You see, the problem arises with the belief of the people of the book that Adam committed a sin, though mainly Eve, his wife, or whatever you take her to be, was responsible. But ultimately, Adam did commit a sin. And according to this belief, it was inherited by the people, so that after that, anyone who was born out of flesh was bound to be born as sinful. And there is no escape. Now, here is the first difference which arises from the Quranic point of view. According to the Holy Quran, every child is born innocent. None is born with a criminal intent, inclination or criminal inclination as fed into him or her through genes and character bearing, whatever they are. I mean, nobody is ciphered by Allah to commit crime. And a crime on the part of any person does not transfer into the character-bearing genes, so that the future offsprings are born with that deficiency in that person. That is the first principle of the Holy Quran, which is in total disagreement with the so far held view by the Christians, or some Christians I should say, that man is born sinful. Secondly, what about forgiveness? Did God not forgive Adam after he became repentant and sought forgiveness of Allah? According to the Holy Quran, he was forgiven. And forgiveness wipes out all traces of previous sin. According to Islam, a person is reborn when he is forgiven. So when God did forgive Adam, who had committed crime, why did he not forgive the innocent generation after generations born through Adam's progeny, who had not committed any crime at all? So it will be a very unjust God who continues to condemn all the future generations of Adam to a sin against which they had no power. So, injustice upon injustice. Now, when you come to the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, the argument built, as I have read many Christian books on the philosophy of— the argument is built on the concept of justice of God. they say it is against the justice of God to forgive an innocent person, to a criminal, and so he must find some via media, some instrument whereby he, without compromising his justice, he could forgive. Now, in that dilemma, according to Christian philosophy, Jesus the Son came to the help of the Father and offered himself. He said, I am innocent, and if by my own volition I take the crimes of the entire mankind upon myself, then why shouldn't you forgive them? Now here the sense of justice of God accepted this. But what sort of sense of justice that was? To let an innocent person be punished for the sins of the entire host of mankind, while certain sins cannot at all be forgiven by those who are not concerned, innocent or non-innocent. A mere child is raped and mercilessly, brutally killed. Now, would Christianity have us believe that if such a criminal believes in Jesus, having offered his sacrifice, he would be forgiven? Because Jesus has taken it upon himself. And what is the ratio between crime and punishment? What sort of justice that is? Millions of people and billions upon billions to be born in future, when they commit crimes that they do freely today, all they have to do is to believe in Jesus, and he would take the punishment of all these people, even yet not born, by suffering only for 3 days. Just 3 days. Imagine, what sense of justice is that? More than that, the Son, which is told to have offered himself freely, of volition, to take the sins of all the mankind upon himself, provided they believe in him. Where is justice? It is an ulterior motive, ulterior cause, selfishness apparent in this. Had he done it for the sake of all the sinners, it would have been a different story. But he does it only for those who believe in him to be the Son of God, not otherwise. But how does he do? How does he do it? The night before the crucifixion, he wakes up all night, beseeching God, begging him to take this bitter cup away from him. The bitter cup of impending crucifixion. What sort of volition that was? He goes on praying and he coaxes his disciples who go to sleep. Is this the time to sleep? Get up, cry, and seek forgiveness of Allah and beseech him to take away this bitter cup from me. But in the end he says, but if you must have me sacrificed, then thine should be done, not mine. The will is that of God the Father, the just. The sacrifice is imposed on an innocent person. Where is the sense of justice left in that? So look at it from every angle, any angle. It is just a story made by St. Paul particularly, and because he was not trained by Jesus himself. The two disciples who were brought up by Jesus under his own care, who were taught what spirituality was by Jesus himself, were those who did not believe either in his being little son or in Trinity, or even having severed their ties with the Old Testament at all. That was the fight which went on for a long time, but the mainstream of Christianity at that time was not Pauline Christianity. It was Jacobine Christianity, and the brother of Jesus himself who deputized him, he stood firm in guarding the true Christianity of Jesus Christ by repeatedly declaring that Jesus was a prophet of God like other prophets of God, and never calling him to be a literal son, never even mentioning Trinity. So this is all the Christian background and the involvement of their beliefs, all this. I don't have the reference here, but all Christians know that what I'm telling you is true. One point is left, which I must also make clear, that Jesus Christ never required from any human being to worship him. Never once. So apart from other things, what sort of Son of God he was, if he is to be taken as being perfectly at one with the Godhead, so that no difference can be created. He is a person, not an aspect. Yet he is a part of an indivisible Godhead. Now this is the mystery of Christianity, which is taught us to be the divine mystery, which you can't understand, but you must believe in. Without understanding it, you can't believe in it. Without believing in it, you can't understand it. And even after believing it, you can't understand it, because if you can understand it, you can make others understand. I have yet to meet a Christian who claims to have understood it after belief and is capable of sharing his understanding with others. So these are the problems, multiplied and compounded problems in relation to the concept of sin and how it should be forgiven. Islamic view is very simple and natural. According to Islam, God made man according to his own nature, that is, his attributes. And whatever a true man finds right in himself, through that reference he can understand God better. Now, what do we find our experience with relation to crime and forgiveness? Let's start with the daily experience in every family. If a child commits a crime or makes a mistake, many a time the mothers and the parents look away and don't take notice of that. But if he insists and continues to repeat that crime or omission, in that case they have to show some firm attitude. And after warnings, if he still continues, then he is punished. But if he seeks forgiveness and he is once forgiven, then everything is over. He is reborn again. This is the human experience which exactly applies to God. And according to the Holy Quran, once a sinner has shown true repentance to God, he happily receives him into his kingdom. And he can forgive everything, because he is the ultimate proprietor. He is not only sovereign, but he is the owner of everything he has created. So the scope of his forgiveness is much larger and bigger than the scope of forgiveness of any judge. So this is the simple Quranic philosophy or principle relating to justice and forgiveness, as against the Christian philosophy and principle of justice and forgiveness. Thank you.
Your Holiness, my name is Evgeny Khotin. I am Doctor of Medicine and at the same time Dean of Foreign Medical Students in Grodno State Medical Institute, Belarus. We have much foreign students and most of them are from Pakistan. This year we'll have Ahmadiyya students. I know that some Pakistani students have cool, sometimes negative attitude to Ahmadiyya students. Despite Ahmadiyya students are very peaceful. I'd like to ask you, Could you explain me this attitude? And I'd like to hear some possible, your personal recommendations, how to avoid these possible conflicts with them in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have a Christian background or non-committal or something? Personally, do you have a Christian background or a non-committal background, you know, like non-believer?
The discrepancy between them is on the basis of some
I understand.
religious details. I can't explain
Of course,
it.
I understand. No, I have understood.
Yes.
My question is a different question, so that my answer should be, particularly acceptable to you, because when I know what your own views are, then my answer will be tailored for that particular purpose. Are you a Christian?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. You know, the answer to this question lies in my reminding you of the early Christianity at the time of Jesus Christ, of the days of early Christianity, I should say, when Jesus Christ claimed to be from God in whatever capacity, I leave it alone for a while. When he claimed to be from God, what was his message, which infuriated people? The message was simply this, that if someone strikes you on one cheek, offer the other one. If someone goes for your shirt, also offer the cloak, and so on and so forth. Oh, what is wrong with that message? What is so infuriating about it? Why did the society react so strongly as to went straight for his blood? This is the question. So it is not what you do that creates hostilities and generates such animosity in the society against you. It is the truth which does it. It's the deeper inner feeling that these people are good and they are going to conquer. Nothing can stop their passage to victory. Now, despite denying Jesus Christ, the society read the signs of truth in him. They read that this meek, humble teachings is in fact so powerful potentially that it is going to wipe out all other teachings which comes into confrontation against it. That is the reason why every prophet of God, whatever his message be, is confronted and opposed tooth and nail by the society whom he addresses. And the same exactly is being repeated before you. Hazrat Masih Maud, the founder of the Ahmadiyya community, claimed to be the re-advent of Jesus Christ. So what he brought to Judaism was not any addition to the laws or any subtraction from the laws of the book. What he did was, as he himself clearly indicates, professes, he said, I have not come to change a jot of the book. I have come to perfect it or complete it. So exactly the same was the claim of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, the founder of this community. He said, I have not come to change a jot of the Quran or a jot of the word of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. I am completely and totally subordinate to them. What I have come is, the reason why I have come is to change your distorted attitudes back to the right ones. So this was the mission of Jesus Christ, in fact. He came to rectify the crooked attitudes of the Judaic people, which was their fault, not the fault of the book. So Hazrat Masih Maud exactly repeated the same, launched the same movement of rectification of attitudes in Islam. And one of his crimes, according to the other Muslims, was that he presented a new understanding of the holy war Jihad. New to them, not to the Quran. Now repeatedly Hazrat Mirza Sahib claimed that the current belief, the prevalent belief among the Muslims, that Islam permits the use of sword or any weapon to spread the message of Islam is absolutely false. It has no foundation whatsoever in Islam. So forget the raising of sword for the sake of the message. But if swords are raised against you, and you are on the receiving end of cruelty perpetrated against you, then Islam permits you to raise the sword and use the same weapons in response. So, having analyzed the situation prevailing at that time in the world, he said, you have different religious enemies, and the greatest danger is from Christianity itself, which has distorted the previous generations of Christian scholars and Orientalists, had distorted the message of Islam and had in fact character assassinated Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallam. So he said, the weapons they are using, you must use in response. You prove them to be wrong by a jihad of words, by a jihad of letters, a jihad of wisdom and common sense. So to this purpose he trained his community. And the enemies of Ahmadis from among the Muslims took the strongest exception to this understanding of jihad by Hazrat Masih Maud Islam. Again, a very peaceful approach, very sensible approach, which can be understood worldwide by all people belonging to any nation or creed, because the conscience of man remains the same. This understanding of the Quran on the part of Hazrat Masih Maud Islam appeals every human conscience. But they didn't like it, because they were expecting for a reformer who would be a bloody reformer, with a sword in one hand, and the message in the other. He would say, accept it or get ready to be beheaded. Exactly the same situation is repeated as in the time of Jesus Christ. Before Jesus claimed to be that Christ, which was being awaited by the people of the book, the people of the book had distorted their understanding of the man to come. They were expecting a man who would raise them in armed rebellion and lead them in armed rebellion against the Roman Empire. When, to their utter surprise, Jesus Christ, instead of permitting them or even, exciting them to this rebellion, he said, it's wrong. All I have come to do is to upbring you in a manner that the spirit of the book requires. You have gone too far to the form and the ways in which the soul is bound. That's what I meant to say is, you have become too literal, he said. You have started following Judaism so literally that you have forgotten that if there is a cup, there is nothing in it, that cup is useless. Throw it away and shatter it to pieces. So what he found the Jewish people to be were like empty cups, emphasizing so much on the form and the letter of the book, and forgetting the spirit so completely that they were hollow, empty people without the spirit of Judaism. Jesus Christ emphasized the role of spirit, but did not reject the form either. So that was the fight about. But the Jewish people didn't like it. They said, we want an armed warrior who would liberate us from the yoke of the Roman Empire, and if not, then you are an impostor, you couldn't be from God, you are not the one we were expecting. The same treatment was meted out to Hazrat Masih Maud Islam. the founder of the Ahmadiyya community. So this is the background you must understand. It is not what the Ahmadis do which, angers the non-Ahmadi society. It is what they do not do. They do not have any recourse to arms or terrorism or all such activities. And this angers the others because they believe in such weapons of bringing about a revolution. So they'll continue to hate us. Because hatred on the part of Jews in the early part of Christianity was a destiny. Nobody could change it. But you have nothing to fear. When they persecute Ahmadis in Pakistan or elsewhere, we do not respond with the same weapons. We follow that attitude which was emphasized by Jesus Christ, that is forgiveness despite the fact that you have a right to take revenge. So Ahmadiyya does not take away the right of revenge from us, but emphasizes the other part, the other option, which is forgiveness. But more than that, patience. And they are two different things. Forgiveness on the part of a weak person may be misunderstood, it may not be forgiveness at all. It may be a sign of weakness. But patience is always well understood. But patience works everywhere alike. So if Ahmadis are in power anywhere and they are still persecuted, they can take their revenge but do not, then this is the true patience which they are required to exercise. So I assure you that they would exercise that patience in Belarus and any other country of the world, even when they become powerful. If any Ahmadi retaliates when he can, I always tell him that you have broken your ties with me and with Ahmadiyya. So you have no fear of any such response which could create a chain reaction of revenge after revenge. You will remain peaceful. Thank you.
Fish Patel, I'm an accountant. I was born in Uganda and I've spent most of my life in London. My question is, in recent times Islam has suffered from much adverse media coverage, particularly the Gulf War
Right.
and the Holy War.
Right.
The
Gulf War and what?
Holy War,
Holy War? Which Holy War?
Iran and Iraq.
You consider it to be a holy war?
That's what the media coverage is.
How? That is how the media misrepresents the war of attrition. Not a holy war, but a war of attrition between Iraq and Iran. Okay, fine.
How are the strong Muslim virtues trying to be upheld to guard against the adverse coverage particularly in that Jesus?
Thank you very much. Whenever I go visit any country or even here as a routine, I welcome media to come to me to ask my opinion of how I understand Islam to be, and my community follows, of course, my understanding of Islam. And thereby I clarify all these issues with reference to the Quran, with reference to the Hadith, and with reference to common sense. But unfortunately, this is not what they come to me for. They want some excitable news. They want some inflammatory material. They would give me headlines in the national media everywhere if I say, go ahead and murder them and kill them and wipe them out. This is what they want. So their expectation is not honest. They want to create an image of Islam, imprint an image of Islam and maintain that image on the minds and hearts of the Western people, which keeps them at a distance from Islam with reference to their own inner genuine reactions. Now, whatever they do to others, it doesn't matter. But the Europeans particularly understand the genuine, normal human responses. So when they see those responses to be at odd with natural reactions, they discard that religion, that philosophy, which seems to support them as man-made and nonsensical. So this is a willful attempt on the part of the Western media to keep the image of Islam tarnished. What hidden hands are playing a part behind that, I don't know. But there are definitely some hidden hands who plan it. And the governments, Western governments, including Americans, are always guided in this policy so that there is a unanimity of this attitude in all the Western media. All I could do was to repeatedly go to them and answer their questions with reference to Islamic history, with reference to their own history, and make them understand the real problem. They don't give me coverage, although they attend the conferences all right, and they appear to return satisfied, because again their hands are bound. Once I remember, I spoke on the issue of Salman Rushdie. The conference was very well attended. All the national press was present, all the other smaller newspapers, regional newspapers were represented. It's a very well attended conference, and we sat there for 2 to 3 hours, and everybody seemed to be ultimately satisfied that my representation of Islam was correct, genuine, based on the Quran and Hadith. But in the end I told them, I'm so happy that you have shown such a positive response, but I'm afraid that no paper is going to cover this, because you have been disappointed in me presenting Islam as a sensible thing. That's what not you came for. And that is exactly what happened the next day. All papers were completely empty of what I had told them. Had I said that I fully support Khomeini, this man must be murdered, my pictures, my words would be flashed on the front page of every paper. What can you do about it? When there is a criminal accord on this issue, that Islam must not be permitted to be presented in a sensible, acceptable way. They have, of course, their own genuine fears and reasons to follow this policy, because the history of the so-called holy wars between the Christian world and the Muslim world, particularly in relation to Saladin's times, and in relation to the Ottoman Empire, is a history which invokes many ugly images in their minds. They do not want the repetition of such confrontation again. And that is why they want to keep the world of Christianity and Islam so far apart that there is no question of interrelationship and mutual understanding, so that Islam could begin to make inroads into Europe and create small Muslim states, etc., etc. And the Bosnian issue also can be understood in the light of what I have said. The rest is to pray and to preach. That is exactly what we are doing. Thank you. Please.
Your Holiness, my name is Michael Williams. I'm a retired civil servant of southwest London. And I would like to ask you the following question as a member of the World Conference on Religion and Peace.
Right.
As there has long been conflict over the partition of Kashmir, I've wondered if the Ahmadiyya movement has been able to talk with Hindu groups to make a specifically religious contribution to the resolution of this conflict.
Thank you very much. And it's a very well, carefully worded question you have framed. And it's a tribute to your civil service background, you know. A political question garbed in religious phraseology. very beautifully done. Now I tell you in straightforward language that already I have been in touch with the Hindu leadership, political leadership, on this very issue, and I have openly expressed my views on this question, trying to convince them to a right path which could be the only acceptable solution of Kashmir problem, not only to India and Pakistan, but also to the whole world. On that I had even spoken earlier during my speech, my sermons on Gulf crisis. There I knew I would be made a target of willful character assassination on the part of Pakistan and other Muslims of different countries. But I expressed this view. I'm not afraid of these things. They do not matter to me. I stick to principles, and if I fail to stick to principles, that will be the day of my death. So I openly said it, without chewing my words. I said, in my opinion, the solution of Kashmir lies in the freedom of the valley, without having annexed to either India or Kashmir or Pakistan. It should be permitted to have an independent, free entity of its own. And Jammu and other Hindu majority areas should at last be accepted as having annexed to India permanently, and Azad Kashmir on the other part should be permitted to annex to Pakistan permanently. In between, the valley should remain untouched by either. A freedom should be guaranteed, absolute freedom, with, of course, conditions that you will not go into war with either India or Pakistan with the help of any foreign power or with the help of either of the two. You will guarantee a peaceful coexistence and co-relationship with both sides, India and Pakistan, and then the Kashmir would really return to be that valley of that heaven on earth, which it has been referred to by many visitors and scholars, etc. Now, when I spoke on this subject to the Hindu leadership, particularly, I met not the government officials, but some highly placed ex-government officials and some journalists of great renown and who have some influence. It took me sometimes an hour to ultimately convince them that that is the only solution. Do whatever else you do, you will only frustrate the hopes of your own people, because no peace will be gained. Again, I told them that for the sake of your own future, for God's sake, understand that it is only the Kashmir problem unresolved which is causing both India and Pakistan to spend a very large portion of their national wealth on maintaining defense forces, with the result that the economy has got turned upside down. The defensive weapons are provided to every human being and every form of life, but the large proportion of human economy is spent on maintaining the non-defensive area. The nails and teeth draw very little out of your economy. So if it is turned upside down, then you're all teeth and all nails, very little of the body to support them either. This twisted life, this meaningless attitude, which results in the growing poverty of your own people, indicates that what you're doing is that you're drawing the blood of your own people to feed into an army or an air force or a navy for maintenance of that status quo of Kashmir and to maintenance of belligerence between the two parties. This is not sensible. I said this is what I tell the Pakistanis as well. You must come to an understanding. They realized it, and one of them even toured Kashmir and started giving air to these views. but cautiously. The reason I emphasize it, and this ultimately I hope, and I do hope I convince them of this, is that the jealousy between India and Pakistan is doing both a world of harm, and the poor people of both these countries are suffering so much, and there always is a threat of an army takeover, because the army has grown out of its size, out of its natural size. It's not kept under its proper place, in its proper place. So these are many factors which complicate the problem of Kashmir. And when I give air to these views, of course I draw very strong negative response from Pakistani leadership. Particularly they say he is a traitor to the country. Imagine what he's saying. But I could be a traitor to a country, but not to God, not to the cause of human values. And my understanding of loyalty is encompasses all these parts of loyalties, all those aspects of loyalty. I place loyalty to God at the top, and as a natural result and outcome, not in contradiction with that, I believe in loyalty to mankind and humanity. Under the canopy of these come the other relationships. So in this spirit I have attempted to convince Indian leadership. Once Farooq Abdullah also came to meet me, and we had long discussion, and he said, yes, I think this is the right approach, and this what I'm going to try to inculcate among others. But unfortunately, he was not listened to. Nobody would listen to reason when you are intent upon having your will willy-nilly, however you may do it. But you can't have it. This is a bone of contention which will continue to stick in the throats of both, unless they come to the solution as I believe I have proposed, and this is the only possible solution. So if you can exercise some influence in that direction, I would be deeply obliged. Thank you. It's a very interesting question. Thank you for raising this question. Unfortunately, because it is of that type, I have to explain things. According to Islam, there is no reincarnation of souls whatsoever. And Islam rejects the Hindu philosophy or Buddhist philosophy or whatever philosophy you call it, that once souls depart, they would return and would be re-chained into life of some sort. Because that philosophy is very bizarre and unacceptable anyway. Because they believe that if somebody sins, his soul has committed a crime by which that soul must be punished by God. So the punishment of God according to them is to recycle that soul into life of a lower order next time. Which means that if at any particular point in time the majority of human beings are sinful, then once their souls depart, they would not return to be reincarnated into human beings at all. Maybe in the next generation of the living things,
suddenly you will find an upsurge in the population of dogs and other animals and insects, etc., and men would be reducing in number, because a sinful society must be punished. And if the dogs behave better, then the next generation of dogs will be reincarnated into human beings. What sort of philosophy that is, I don't know. It's just a myth. A desire to live on. It is only that which gives birth to such philosophies. And that is natural, common and universal. We want somehow to live on, because life which confines us is far too short. There are so many unfulfilled desires, so many hopes which have not been cherished and realized. So the hereafter also could be a child of this desire. So when we come to this area, when we have rejected one idea, demonstrating to you that this idea is just a wishful thinking, why not the other one as well? So that is why I said it has to be further explained. According to the sociologists, it is the human imagination which has created hell and heaven. It has nothing to do whatsoever with the realities of life or nature. Once man dies, he must die. And they have also been rejecting the belief in soul as an independently viable entity. They say soul could not continue to maintain its package of energy by itself, because energy begins to dissipate, and you can't conceive of a package of energy with a form to maintain itself with a consciousness. So for such reasons, first the sociologists rejected, then the scientists rejected the idea of life after death. But I am talking of olden days. Now new generations are changing their attitude and approach, particularly the scientists, because they have discovered, to their utter surprise, that packages of energy can maintain themselves and survive as such, as single entities. And this is how the term soliton is born. Soliton is called that package of energy which can independently exist and which has already been employed in the latest generation of computers, mostly by Japan. It's an amazing thing to have followed nature and to have created that. And in one of the articles written by one of the greatest authorities on this subject, what he wrote in the end, was music to my soul. But it was soul he was talking about. He writes that there was a time when we went into search of realities, deeper, profound realities of existence, and we poo-pooed the idea of soul and its existence as such. And there we found some religious elders with long beards and robes telling us, you are making a mistake. There is a God, there is a soul, as such as there is something as soul, and the souls will return to God. So we took the journey forward. After 200 years or so of meandering into wilderness, searching for truth here and there, we have returned to the same spot, believing in the possibility of existence of soul, not in the existence but the possibility of existence of soul. And when we reached there, the same old gentlemen were waiting for us. Didn't we tell you? Why did you waste that much time? So man as a whole is returning back to those ideas which were rejected as bizarre and unscientific. Now, from another angle, I explain to you the reason why we believe in the life hereafter. First of all, if there is no life hereafter, what is the purpose of man's creation? And man's creation is purposeful. There is no denying it. again there, although the scientists, the Darwinians particularly, of the earlier century, they rejected the presence of design in evolution. They said it happened accidentally, it was the natural selection which played a role, and choices were offered to it, and the very best automatically survived. So it was a game, a world of the might is right. Now I have already written a largest chapter on this issue with relation to scientific theories and evidence against these beliefs presented by other scientists as well. But that will be too long, because that chapter has already grown to a size of 80 pages. A book is about to be published in which you will find this very interesting chapter, I hope. Anyway, leaving that aside, the scientists now have discovered that there is far more than a blind evolution. There is a purposeful direction given to life which could not have been achieved through collusion of chances. No way can it be done. One such scientist, who has a name among his own community, he presents the example of a jumbo jet whose small parts and big parts are in a junkyard, not formed, but potentially to be formed. All the material in the junkyard is present which could ultimately be utilized to make a jumbo jet. He said, if there is a genuine possibility in a whirlwind striking that junkyard and ultimately ending up with a finished jumbo jet, then of course there is a possibility of evolution taking its form and shape by myriads of chances playing in unison to create that ultimate purpose of evolution, man. There is more to it than man. It is the consciousness, and this is where my personal view of evolution begins. It's not what the scientists have said, but I believe the evolution is the evolution of consciousness. Not physical as much, but evolution of consciousness, with the result that we are given a broader vision. We can share far more than our small bodies can in the form of animals. All the awareness the animals have without eyes, without hearing, without the sense of touch, is what they are, confined in the limited space of their form and their body. Such are worms. So to give us a larger share of the universe, to be aware of things which we could not conceive previously, the journey of evolution takes us from lower consciousness to higher consciousness. Until the five forms of consciousness develop, and through these windows we begin to understand the universe as never before animal could ever do. And it is through this development of refined consciousness that we can reach God the Creator. All this is preparation for a purpose. If we die here and turn to dust, then there will be no logic left in any human relationship whatsoever. Then the wisest among them should be the most selfish. Because if this is all that we live for, what is the meaning of sacrifice? What is the meaning of suffering? What is the meaning of obeying laws and orders and all that? You must run away with whatever you can and forget about the rest. This is the ultimate direction which is being given by atheism today to all the societies of the world. That is why the crime is on the rampant and on the increase, and no political measures, no legislative measures can suppress the crime, because the crime is related to answerability. In law, you are only responsible in your behavior as long as you have fear of detection. In religion, You're only responsible for your behavior if there is a fear of God's response to how you behave and the possibility of reward and punishment. In fact, take them away and the entire wheel of evolution will come to a halt, because the life moves on with the fear of punishment, even though not consciously formed, but through experience. The life has always suffered from the fear of, has become wary of fear of negative values, pain, punishment, etc., and the reward of a better and higher existence. So there will be no evolution anyway. But once it has been there, we must realize and understand that if we die here and we are finished, then all this scheme is meaningless and totally empty and devoid of sense, while we don't see it as such. So Islamic response to this is that the journey does not end here, but it begins. Man has been granted soul, which he shares with other animals. But this soul is gradually, through religious training, can be termed a spirit, which is not shared by all other animals. Here it is entirely up to you to refine that spirit so that it continues to travel closer to God and His attributes. If a soul is trained in these values, then here on earth we will know definitely whether we are going to be subjected to hell or we will be treated by heaven, with heaven. Because already here we do create our own heaven and hell, and we do it not with the purpose of dying and having done with it altogether. If you begin to acquire a taste for goodness, if you really know what nobility is and begin to enjoy nobility, then right there your reward begins. The higher the level of nobility you acquire, the greater your reward becomes, and immediate it is. It is not just a promise by God. You do an act of nobility, it makes you so happy, so contented, that you get addicted to this. You commit an evil, and you may enjoy a sort of excitement, but it doesn't live with you. It turns into a sort of pangs of conscience, which ultimately die out if you continue on the same path of ignoring the cause of conscience. But whatever the nature of this player, the evil player is, it leaves always a bad taste in the mouth. And the desire for more continues to plague you and egg you on to greater pleasures which always lie beyond your reach. It turns society mad in pursuit of pleasure. You become hippies, you became skinheads and do whatever you like. You begin to walk naked in the streets to get some excitement and kick out of life. But there is no end to it. There is no order, no wisdom left to life if man becomes selfish because of atheism. So there was a period when agnosticism ruled supreme in Europe, and it was not so dangerous. People thought maybe there is a God, maybe there is not. It's all right. As long as they could cope with religious teaching without sacrificing their ulterior motives, they did. But now is the age of atheism ruling supreme, where selfishness is the ultimate order. And that is why irresponsibility is growing. If you believe in the hereafter, only then you suddenly realize that you are responsible for your actions. Where the eye of the law is watching you or not, it's irrelevant and immaterial. So that is why we believe, because we have to believe, number one. Number two, if we look back at the evolution, we can't believe in God creating man without a purpose, bringing him to a sudden halt, and letting him go scot-free for whatever crimes he can run away with. So Islam believes in an eternal evolution, a bodily evolution to begin with, but the signs of spiritual evolution can be seen and witnessed everywhere throughout all stages of evolution. And once the soul has reached that stage of spirit where it can live independently of body, as a soliton for instance, from then on the journey into evolution would be by soul. But this concept of immediate question answer is not properly understood by the religious adherents. It is mentioned through directly or through implication in many religions. But what Islam presents us is a different scenario altogether. According to Islam, the soul which is born out of the body, in relation to what it will develop later on, it would be just like an embryo as compared to the healthy delivered baby. Now, embryo has everything of that baby in it, otherwise the baby will not be born. But its consciousness is subdued. It has some consciousness, but not at a level that we can reach down consciously to it. But if there was no consciousness, it would not develop. It has all the basics of that consciousness and the plan of consciousness, so it develops gradually. And if it is unhealthy baby, it begins to suffer even before its birth. If it's a healthy baby, it kicks around and sometimes causes trouble to the pregnant mother, but she enjoys that kicking about. So when she delivers to a bounding baby with health and with all the loveliness that you relate to newborn infants, then it becomes both a reward for the mother as well as a reward for itself. This is the plan of creation by Allah according to us, according to Islam. When a healthy soul is delivered to him, it creates some sort of happiness, not shared by God exactly in our own style of being happy, but God does record his approval in some way. So he is far more happy, far happier than a mother who gives birth to a healthy child. And the child himself grows into a healthy adult later on, if other factors do not deviate him from the right path, of course. So that second stage of evolution will continue. Death is not the end all. I hope I have covered all the different aspects of your question. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please. Why are you asking? Acha. Right. Please.
Your Holiness, my name is Charlene and I'm a school teacher from London.
From London?
From London.
Right.
The question I would like to ask is, should the situation in Bosnia be regarded as a jihad, a holy war?
Any situation could be regarded a holy war where the defendant is innocent. He is targeted for something which he has not committed. He is targeted to be the recipient of cruelties and perpetuation of atrocities just for the sake of his religious name or religious entity. When it happens, that defense becomes holy war in the definition of the Quran. So if there is any holy war, it is certainly not the war of Gulf between Saudi and the Western powers on the one hand and Iraq on the other. It is certainly not the holy war, the war between Iran and Iraq or Afghanistanis against Afghanistanis. Wherever there is a hatred which springs from a religious prejudice and where a people are punished just for their religious relationship or belonging, then their defense according to the Quran is jihad. So I have declared it previously, right in the beginning of this Bosnian situation, that if I can declare one country to be in jihad, that is Bosnia. Thank you. Enough or something? Just think. Thank you. Thank you. Please.
Your Holiness, my name is Mohammed Rashid.
Right.
I was born in Kenya. I'm the local government officer with Birmingham City Council.
Right.
And I'm asking you this question as a Muslim.
Right.
Now, we Muslims all believe in the Holy Quran.
Right.
Our belief may be different, but they are within the guidelines of the Holy Quran.
Correct.
Now, why then is it necessary to be an Ahmadi? And my second question is, to be an, what is provided by the Ahmadis that is not provided by the other Muslims?
Already I have demonstrated it.
Yes.
All my answers to different questions should have satisfied you that the viewpoint with reference to the Holy Quran which I am presenting are not shared by other Orthodox Muslims. It is there that the differences lie. So whichever viewpoints appeal to your conscience and nature to be correct in relation to the Quranic understanding and the understanding of the Hadith and in relation to the general common sense of mankind, then why shouldn't you adhere to those views? There's no reason why. If you're a true man, if you're in search of truth, if you can call a spade when you see one, then when you agree with the viewpoints of Ahmadiyya in relation to the understanding of the Quran and Hadith and the world affairs, then I don't see any reason why you should remain outside and waste your life.
It's not as an outsider, it is as a Muslim, because I mean there's...
I'm also answering you with response to the question within the confines of Islam. That is, within the confines of the Muslim brotherhood or whatever you call it. Unfortunately, why I hesitated in addressing this Muslim brotherhood, because I don't find any brotherhood nowadays. There is more enmity between non-Muslim sect and another than between these Muslims and the non-Muslims. The difference is that their enmity against non-Muslims is never expressed in raising of jihad, actual jihad. But in between, among themselves, it is freely expressed with the involvement of sword and bullets and all sorts of weapons to destroy each other. So is this the Muslim entity to which you like to continue to stick, to adhere to? You see, the problem is that outside Ahmadiyya, wherever there is any understanding of the Quran, that is the viewpoint, vantage point from which they understand the Holy Quran and its teachings. Now my request to you is that put yourself in that position. View Islam from their vantage point. And then for a change, come to the Ahmadiyya vantage point and review Islam from that vantage point. Whichever you find healthier, which you ever find attuned to your own nature, follow that. Because you have no option then. Right? Thank you.
I would like to ask you the following question. People die...
Did you say you are from Belgium?
Belgium?
Yes, we met there, didn't we?
Yes.
You knew my last visit, yes?
Yes.
Please.
People die at different age. How will God judge their actions on the day of judgment, especially
That's
for a
right.
child?
Very, very wise question. This has already been answered by the Holy Prophet of Islam, with the grace of Allah. With reference to children, the Islamic view is that they are innocent things. They cannot be punished for any act on their part because they are not answerable. They have not reached the age of that majority where they become answerable to God. So all such children will be forgiven, of course, and will be given entry into the paradise. But the question arises, if they have failed to develop their souls in positive values either, they are just neutral entities. They cannot enjoy paradise because for that they have not themselves trained them. They have not created any paradise here on earth for themselves. They have not tasted what paradise is. In answer to this question, Hazrat Rasulullah ﷺ was shown by God that Hazrat Ibrahim ﷺ, the father of the prophets, shared by all the big nations of the religious nations of the world, proudly so, he would be given the charge of all such children. His, of course, his faculties will be enhanced out of all proportions than we can imagine. Like angels perform so many things, not running from one place to another, but being present almost everywhere, like laws of nature. They work in unison with each other everywhere alike. So Abraham ﷺ would be granted some powers to particularly bring up these children and give them a taste for the spiritual life and a taste for heaven. Once they are developed and trained, then they will be given, offered that heaven. Now the problem against this scenario is faced only by those who believe in the physical dimensions of heaven and earth. You see, these ulama, particularly those ulama belonging to the orthodox views, whether they're Sunnis or Shias, they believe that the heaven and hell have physical dimensions. Here is heaven, there is hell. And the gates are actually physical gates to stop certain people from entering and opened up for the sake of some others. Now, the problem they face, and they discuss in their commentaries of the Quran as well, that if these children are not permitted to enjoy heaven and they are not given pass to the entry, for the entry, will Abraham come out and train them elsewhere? And if he does, how can you believe that once you enter heaven, there will be no getting out? So what is this strange dilemma? This is because they have unfortunately taken the spiritual messages too literally, while they have no right to do so. The Holy Prophet of Islam has clearly explained things in such spiritual terms as there is no possibility left for any man to take these things too literally. For instance, there is one revelation of the Holy Quran which speaks of the heaven extending to the entire universe. Nothing is left out. Now those who had previously understood the meaning to be literal, they were amazed. One of them addressed Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asking him, if this verse of the Holy Quran is true, and naturally it is true, then there is no space left for hell. Where the hell would be? All the universe will be covered by heaven. The answer was, it would be there, in the same place. But only you fail to understand it. You can't understand these things. Obviously he was talking of dimensions. Different dimensions occupy the same space without ever crossing roads with each other, without even realizing the existence of the other. So in a universe where heaven extends all over universe, why should Abraham have to go out physically? You see, it's only a matter of gradation we are talking about. These children will be admitted to that heaven, the four dimensions, only they would wait for being trained further to acquire taste for love of God and understanding of His attributes, because it is that which would make up the heaven and the heavenly praises. Right? Thank you. Is it time? But there are so many people who want to ask one. All right, I'll wait only one question now, because they told me the time is over.
Okay.
And we have to move on to the other program. You know, these such programs should be promoted more, you know. It's never enough. It flies by so rapidly, you know, in this question and answer session. And I always gain spiritual pleasure, and also my knowledge also increases whenever I attend such meetings. Please.
Your Holiness, my name is Bob Ward. I'm a business owner from Newbury in Berkshire. I've recently become committed to be a Christian. But the question I would like to ask you is, many wars have started throughout history because of men's difference in religious beliefs. Do you believe that there will come a time when all men, regardless of colour, creed, race or religion, can live in peace?
Of course, I believe in that possibility only if the mankind accepts this principle that absolute justice is a must for establishing peace. Wherever justice becomes relative, things go wrong, you know, things are twisted and distorted. And unfortunately, in all the developed nations of the world today, their interrelationship within and without is not based on justice. It is based on the exigencies. The advantages they could gain from a certain decision at a certain time and situation. It is always that which governs their decision making. So, on the one hand, I have hope, definitely. But if you follow, but there is a very big if, unfortunately. Right? Thank you. So I take leave of you. Allah bless you. Thank you.